Welcome back to SledgeHammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Today, I'm joined by the awesome Ken Vetter of the channel Mid-Level Media. Ken, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. I don't know how awesome I am, but I'm just happy that you invited me. I appreciate it, man.
Oh, no problem, man. I watched your channel for about 3 episodes, and I was like, I got to get this dude on here, man. We'll have a blast together. So,
I can't believe that. I just assumed you hadn't watched any of my content. That's why you wanted me on
and
here.
that's what. Man, but for those of you that don't know much about Ken, obviously handsome guy. Anybody with the first name Ken is extremely handsome and well-read. It just comes with the territory. Ken, much like myself, he's loved movies since he was 8 or 9, grew up big in the horror franchises, renting them from the local video stores. He also loved physical media. And as you can tell looking behind him, and if you watch any of his videos, you will see what an avid collector he is about physical media. His whole channel, actually, Mid-Level Media, is all about physical media and all he does. And for those of you that haven't seen it, not only do I have all of Ken's social media links down here so you can follow him on social media, I have his YouTube link down here too, so you can subscribe to his channel. What's a little bit you could tell us about your channel that I may have missed there, Ken?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much you hit the nail on the head. I'm pretty much all about physical media over here. You know, we talk about new physical media releases every single Monday in my physical media reports, talk about rumors, announcements. I do all kinds of reviews of new stuff that comes out. Like I just reviewed all 5 of the Halloween 4Ks that came out couple of weeks ago. So just all kinds of physical media reviews. I do out and about videos, Blu-ray hunting videos. And yeah, man, it's just all physical media all the time around here, talking about Blu-rays, 4Ks. I even throw in a few DVDs every now and then when I'm feeling a little frisky. And I've even at some point, I did a whole VHS collection video too. So I try to get the lead to all the physical media around here.
And it's funny because you always talk about physical media. And we talked just now about how you go to the local video store when you were a kid. I don't know if you know this or not. People that have watched the podcast know this. I grew up in a video store. My parents owned a video store growing up, downtown video in the town that I live in. And my job throughout the week was to take all the VHS tapes that people were not kind enough to rewind and put them in our VHS rewinder. And if I did that all week and all the tapes were rewound that came back in the Dropbox, I got to take home 1 horror movie and 1 NES game. So I wore out the tape of House, and I pretty much wore down the cartridge of Contra. So like that was my youth, was House and Contra, man. So you know that you try to explain that to people now that never went into video stores because of streaming services and stuff. But like the smell when you walked in, or here's something I'm sure you'll remember.
It's sad, but I can't even remember the smell. And I wish I did, but I know what you're talking about. I can't remember it though.
Like I'm sure you'll remember this ultimate heartbreak. You walk up to that movie you've been thinking about all week and you pull it off and that VHS is not behind there.
It's not there.
And then you go up, then you get the ultimate satisfaction of walking up like, hey, did anybody return this in the Dropbox? And they look through that Dropbox and they just happen to pull out Pee-wee's Big Adventure. And you're just like, yes, that's all, like that ultimate, like that heartbreak turns into the ultimate euphoria. And I feel bad that people won't ever get to relive that, man, because for me growing up, it was downtown video on Friday nights to get my movie and my game. And then we'd go over to Toy Works. No, it wasn't Toy Works. It was Toys R Us. It turned into a Toy Works later on. Kids won't know that now, going to the video store, then going to the toy store. Like that doesn't exist anymore. It's such a bummer, man.
Yeah, it's real sad. I mean, it's kind of in the situation I was in. Like I lived in a very small town. So we had a small town video store. So that's where I went to every single weekend. My mom would let me rent 2 to 3 tapes every weekend. And that's where my love for horror really came from, because I would always go to the horror section. And over the course of a couple of years, I rented out that entire horror section and went through all the franchises. So that's where it all started for me.
And that was our YouTube. Walking up and down the aisles, looking at the covers of the VHSs, trying to figure out which one looked the best to rent. And like, I always remember the one that always pops in my head is Fright Night. That was always the one that I would see and like, oh, that cover is so fucking awesome. Like that's how it started for us, was looking at the covers. The poster art is what really turned us on to watching the film.
You can't beat those old school VHS covers. They're just there's something about them. I don't know. Maybe it's the framing of it, the longer like rectangular shape. I don't know. It's just something about it.
Man, and I'm so excited to do this with you because of your avid love of physical media and giving back to the industry that gives so much to us. It's such an underappreciated art, even collecting physical media. It is really an art, and what you do and on the channel, how passionate you are about it. It fires anybody up. You know, anybody that watches your channel gets fired up and wants to go buy as much shit as they possibly can right away. And if you haven't felt that yet, click the link down here in the description, hit that subscribe button, because you will feel that way.
Definitely.
I mean, we know what you're doing right now with the channel and what you got going on with the future with the channel. But now, Ken, I want to take it back to the past. And I want to talk about what got you started in the horror genre, your first horror movie. And your first horror movie was?
I see. Oh, I'm gonna go ahead and say it. So it's It 1990. I have this gorgeous steel book right here. That's awesome. I have that too. I brought all my It copies with me to the stream tonight. And I even have just a regular Blu-ray copy. No DVD copy, unfortunately, though. But yeah, I have all the copies. But when you asked me that question, my first horror movie, it was really kind of hard for me to pinpoint it, because I guess maybe I'm getting a little older and it's hard for me to like pinpoint the very first movie. I watched a lot of Jason and Freddy when I was a kid. Psycho, I remember watching at a very young age. Yeah. Tales from the Crypt, Goosebumps, and all that stuff kind of got me into horror. But it was really, it's kind of stood out as like a specific memory of like my family starting the movie up and like in the living room and telling me that I had to stay in the back room. I think we were at my grandma's or my aunt's or something like that. I just remember peeking through the door and just seeing images of the clown and just being very curious, but also very scared at the same time. And I remember seeing that shower scene where he gets up in the shower and scares Eddie. And yeah, after that, I was talking about it, and my sister actually let me watch it. I don't even know if my parents knew about it at the time. I was probably like maybe 7 or 8 at the time. And yeah, it terrified me. So that's the movie that I can kind of pinpoint I'm pretty sure was the first horror movie I watched in its entirety.
Your parents are watching right now, like, that little bitch.
Yeah,
we knew she let him watch it.
Well, I mean, I must have had cool parents. Like I said, my mom took me to the video store. She did not care what I rented, and when I was renting out the horror section, I was at least 9 or 10 years old. So
sure.
I mean, we went to church, stuff like that. I feel like I had a pretty normal upbringing, but for whatever reason, like they really didn't care what I watched. I guess because I was a pretty good kid overall, I guess.
See, and something I've talked about before, I think that the people that start watching horror at a young age, as long as they get the education to go along with it, of this is fiction, this isn't real.
Yeah.
And, if you get scared, you have parents that are there for you. I feel like those are the people that are more grounded in reality, because we learn the differences between fantasy and reality at a very young age. And like I said, you got, just like anything else, you have to have the education to go along with it. And as long as you do have that education, it's a lot easier for you to grow as a human being at a young age into a better adult, because you know the differences and you know what's fake and what's real. At a young age, we all watch scary movies. We all played Mortal Kombat. And none of the crazy things that happen today because of mental illness that isn't treated. So I'm not with Scream, man. Horror movies don't make killers. Uneducation and mental illness does. So if I had someone ask me, I had someone ask me, would you take your kids to see horror movies? I got a 13-year-old son. I have a 9-year-old daughter. I have a 1-year-old. 1-year-old, I wouldn't take to see any movie in the theater right now. My 9 and 13-year-old, of course I would. I would love to take them to horror movies, but they would get the education talk first of, this is, this isn't real. If you get too scared, let me know. We'll walk out. My 13-year-old son, it is what it is. He's like, yeah, whatever. Horror, It's awesome. I'll do it. But my 9-year-old has autism, and horror's a little iffy for her. But as long as you're educating your kids, let them do what they want, within reason, but with horror movies.
And I'm learning that. I'm really learning that now as well, because I am a parent also. I got a 7-year-old daughter and an 11-year-old son. So, and I think that it really does depend on the kid, because my son, is kind of a chicken when it comes to horror movies. He does not like watching the scary stuff. We tried to watch Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark the other night. He ran out of the room a half hour in. Now, my daughter, 7 years old, who is 4 years younger than him, will sit there and watch scary movies with me and my wife. We all watched Return of the Living Dead together the other night, just me, my wife, and my daughter. And she likes the stuff. But yeah, we cover her eyes when it gets too rough and the blood and stuff like that. But for the most part, like, she really seems to gravitate towards the spooky and scary stuff, which makes me very happy. I want at least one of my kids to like the horror stuff. And maybe my son will come around one day. Who knows?
And that's what it is, like, we got to let them forge their own path, man. Yeah. Because my 9-year-old, she would do nothing horror at all. And now she's really, really into Child's Play. Like, I don't know, something about that doll just resonated with her to where I know this isn't real because it's a doll. But if I put on like a Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, even Scream, she's like, nope, I'm out. I can't do this. So,
and to your point, like you really do have to explain it to them, and we try to explain, look, that's not real, it's fake. And I also have a very earlier memory of watching the movie Innocent Blood, the John Landis film, with my grandfather. And I'm not really sure when that was. I was probably 7 or 8 when I watched that. And she like bites into people and blood splatters everywhere and all that stuff. It's a full-on vampire movie, but I haven't seen it in a really long time. But he explained to me that none of the stuff I was watching on screen was real, that it was all fake. And something in that moment just kind of clicked with me, and I was like, oh, it's all fake. And it was like from that moment on, I could watch whatever I wanted to and not get scared.
See, and that's why I love doing this, because we start talking about it and the conversation gravitates, and then you're like, oh, I also remember this. This is when I realized, you know what I mean? Like, we had these memories when it comes to horror, because that's how much it means to us. I could not tell you what the first comedy I watched was. It would probably be Pee-wee's Big Adventure at a guess. My first drama, no clue. Sci-fi, maybe Star Trek, possibly Star Wars, don't know. But I know that House was my first horror movie because it had that resonation with me, and it helped sculpt me into the human being I am today. Without House, I don't exist as the human being I am today. 100%, no doubt about it. And just as with you and and we are talking about the miniseries, guys. I'm going to refer to this as a film.
For sure, the miniseries.
Yeah. But for me, I will refer to this as a film, because even though it was a TV miniseries, I've always looked at this as a film. So I will continue to refer to it as a film. A lot of iconic scenes. Tim Curry's amazing. The child cast was great. The adults were awesome in this movie. Which scene would you say it was that affected you the most?
Like you said, I was just going through all the scenes again, and there are so many in this movie that stand out. But I would have to say, the scene that really just kind of pulls you in is the very first one with the girl on the tricycle, because it's the first time you realize that in this universe, like, kids can die too. It's not just adults that he's going after. He's going after kids. This little girl's, I don't know, just something it got me. And you see Tim Curry through those sheets, and that he's smiling at first, and then they kind of wave, and then he's not smiling anymore. And then they wave again, and all of a sudden he's got the meanest look on his face. All of his teeth are showing, and he just runs at her. You don't see him. You see him from the POV perspective. And then the mom comes out, and the daughter's not there. There's blood everywhere. She screams. It's just something about that was just so terrifying. And not just at a young age, but even as an adult, when I watched it, it's something still kind of sparks in me.
Mm-hmm. Well, like you said, you have kids. We've talked about this too. The differences in watching horror films as a child versus as a parent. I just finished an episode where we were talking about The Exorcist, and that's a big one, where the differences in watching that as a child versus the parent of a little girl, the horror that you feel in that movie is completely different. I won't go into it because I just did on the last episode, but as a parent of two, I don't want to say a little girl, of 2 kids, because if it was our sons, we do the same. The love we have for our daughter is very, very strong. I've always looked at it as, my daughter's my angel, my son's my best friend. My daughters can do no wrong. My son is literally my best friend. We do everything together. So I get what you're saying, and watching it.
I'll talk about that with you real quick, because The Exorcist is my favorite horror film of all time. And the reason that it's only been that for maybe the past, 5 to 10 years, because when I became a parent, you start to see that movie from the perspective of Ellen Burst's character. And it's terrifying. She's taking her kid to the doctor. She doesn't know what's wrong with it, with her. And just the feeling that she feels in those moments, you can just really sympathize with her.
What about when as a father, man, and I'm sorry for people that have heard me say this 1,000 times, but I got to talk about it again. The scene in The Exorcist that fucks me up the most is when Reagan carves help me in her own stomach when Pazuzu has her. So know she's still in there. It's not just the demon. Reagan is still in that body. Like that part, man, like the most helpless. Because as a kid, I'm not going to lie, man. As a kid, you're like, fuck that girl. Burn the house down. It's a demon. You know what I mean? But then you're a parent, and you're like, you see the help me, and you know that your child is suffering. Like, what can you do to stop this? Like, it's heavy, man. Like that. Yeah. That is a heavy scene.
I went from being, scared of that movie as a kid to laughing at that movie as a teenager because of some of the more like ridiculous scenes in it, to being scared of it again in my 20s and just being absolutely terrified of it today.
Well, my buddy Ghostface usually shows up at the end of the episode to say, what's your favorite scary movie, Ken? But we already covered that. So Ghostface, you're retired for today. Um, so we talked about which scene affected you the most from it as well, but what would you say your favorite scene from it is?
Oh, yeah, there was some. The shower scene is definitely very effective too. The scene that I really love isn't like necessarily a scary scene as it is more of just like a heartfelt, more emotional moment. That's one of the things that I love about the movie, the miniseries in particular. The thing that I didn't feel like the remake really did very well was just like the camaraderie between the friends. You really felt those emotional beats between those younger characters in that movie. And the scene where Jonathan Brandis is just kind of standing there down there right before they go fight it in the sewer, like at the beginning of the first one, and he's just sitting there going, "Help me." And he's like, "You killed my brother George, you bastard. Let's see you now." That whole scene, I love that whole scene. It gives me goosebumps just talking about it right now.
And he absolutely killed that role.
Yeah, he did.
Jonathan
He
Brandis,
did.
like he absolutely killed that role. And then, like you said, when they all huddle up in that big group hug, like
Yep.
that's when you really feel it's the seven, lucky seven.
Yep.
Like you
Lucky
said, there
seven.
wasn't that camaraderie in the new one. You didn't feel
You
like they
just
loved each other like
you
they
never
did then.
felt it in the newer ones because it always just felt like they were trying to get to the next like Pennywise scene, the next
Yes.
Pennywise shaking and gyrating scene. And they just really built that relationship between all those characters in that first one. I just love it. I get the feels every time I watch that movie.
Mm-hmm. Oh, me too. It's nostalgia, man, rolled up into a VHS tape for me.
Yep.
So with that movie also, when we talk about horror, something that we horror hounds love is the deaths, the kills. And there's not a ton of death in this movie, but every single kill to me is very memorable. What kill would you say is your favorite from the miniseries?
The one that always stands out to me, and it kind of scared me a bit as a kid too, but it's when they're down the sewers getting ready to fight, Pennywise for the first time. And it's one of Henry Bauer's friends. I don't remember like which one it is, but when he gets sucked into that pipe, just the way that his body contorts before he goes in
Yeah.
there is just really gnarly and kind of sick. And
Oh
it
yeah,
still kind of
belch,
gets me when
man.
I watch it. So that's probably the one that stands out to me the most, beyond the tricycle kill at the beginning with the girl.
Sure. And one thing that I've always pointed out about that scene with Belch is for
Belch,
a
there you go.
moment,
Belch, there you go. I remember now.
you have it like maybe a millisecond where Henry Bowers becomes a human being. Like he's talking to Stan, he's just gone. Like you can see that he's scared at this moment. At this
Yeah.
moment, you realize Henry Bowers is a scared kid too, because he almost befriends Stan for, oh my God, he's gone. Like he's totally lost his hatred and just gone into full on fear mode at this point. So that's another thing is they really broke Henry Bowers down in the scene. And I agree with you. The first time you watch it, then it comes back to Henry Bowers and he turns towards the camera and his hair's all white,
Oh, yeah.
like totally nailed that scene. Now, since this has now been remade, usually towards the end, I like to ask, would you like to see your first horror movie remade today? Obviously, that's already happened. Now, I'm pretty sure I know the answer. But between the miniseries and the films, and I do consider it Chapter 1 and 2 the same film, much like I do consider the miniseries a film. To me, it Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 are part of the same film. Obviously, they couldn't make a 6-hour movie, so they split it up into 2 parts, much like the miniseries was split up in 2 weeks on an episode. So, of the two, it from the miniseries and it Chapter 1 and 2, which do you prefer?
Oh, I mean, the miniseries from 1990 by far, by a mile. I mean, it's, we didn't really talk about Tim Curry, but like to me, like he is the definitive it. Like the Bozo the clown type clown that would show up at the birthday party is far more scarier than some CGI gyrating monster thing that they created in the new ones. Even though I do think that Bill Skarsgård is good when they actually let him act in those movies. But it's just nowhere near what Tim Curry did with that character.
And one thing to your credit, and every episode I talk about this, if this Pennywise right here came up to me on the street, I'm going to fucking run the other way. Whether I'm a little kid, an adult, what have you, he's scary. But
Yep.
if, Tim Curry's Pennywise walked up to me, I would have wanted a balloon or something. He looked like a playful, happy clown. He was John Wayne Gacy. He was this beautiful, loving clown on the outside and this true monster on the inside.
Yep.
And that's what to me lured you in, was the fact that he was a fun, easy looking clown as compared to the monster of Bill Skarsgård. And again, I'm with you. Not knocking Skarsgård. I think Skarsgård did a great job, but it's just like trying to replace Freddy Krueger, man. You can't.
If I'm Georgie at the beginning of the It miniseries, like, yes, I might stick my hand down the sewer. If I'm Georgie in the new It's, there is no way I'm getting anywhere near that sewer. I'm running away as soon as I see him.
Thank you. And that's what I said. You can't make the clown version of him scary. You know, he's got to look playful and fun, so that way the kids approach him. That was the most unbelievable part of the remake to me, man.
Yeah. Absolutely. I agree with you 100%.
So I've had a blast with you, Ken, and this is something getting to know you and your first horror movie that I've had a lot of fun with. But now we're going to rank the It miniseries. Now, what we're doing is we're ranking it 0 to 5 skulls. 0 is the worst, 5 is the best. Now, we're not being critics. We're not judging it on production, score, acting, nothing like that. What we're doing now is judging this movie strictly on how it affected you on your first viewing. So, like I said, 0 the worst, 5 the best. What would your ranking of It be?
Can I do decimals?
100%.
Okay. It's not in my top 10 horror movies of all time. I don't even know if it would make my top 20, but it's damn near perfect to me. I would give it a 4.75 out of 5.
Mm-hmm. And see, that's the perfect ranking, because, and I always talk about this, if we're ranking movies on, being critically, I could never give a movie a perfect score. I couldn't do it. There's always room to improve. To me, personally, the closest movie that's ever came to being a perfect movie is A Nightmare on Elm Street. When we're talking about horror movies, if we're talking movies in general, it's Pee-wee's Big Adventure. I fucking love that movie. But if we're talking horror movies, to me, the perfect horror movie is A Nightmare on Elm Street. And if you take out the last 5 minutes with that dumb fucking Freddy car and the blow up doll being pulled back through that window, it's the perfect movie, man. If you stopped that movie when her skeleton went down in the bed and you just left it ambiguous right there, it's the perfect horror movie. Like, I could literally find nothing wrong with that film. But that last 5 minutes drives me.
You don't like Nancy's mom blow up doll going through the window at the end?
God, man. That? Like I said, that fucking Freddy card gets me, man. Like, I'm so sorry for people that watch this often.
It's way too on the nose.
It is, man. It is. But that's what I was saying. Like, if I'm going critically, I can't give anything a perfect score. But how films affect me, absolutely, I can give perfect scores. House is one of them. It would probably be another one. I remember being little kids, and we literally made, in my aunt's garage, we made our own little apartment. Like, we made it 224 and a half. And like, we get pizza delivered to our little apartment down in the garage, and we'd watch it all the time. And dude, that movie was so scary to us as a kid, man.
Oh yeah, man. Like, I cannot tell you how much I watched this VHS as a kid. I would watch it twice in one day sometimes. I just really love this movie, which is saying something, because this movie's 3 hours and 12 minutes long. So I mean, I just love the movie. I love being in this world with these characters. Like, to me, and I also read the book around the same time that I used to watch this all the time too. It's like, they're so closely, the actors in this movie, I know they're not all the best actors, but to me, they're just so closely tied to those characters, just like in my heart, that I cannot see anybody else. James McAvoy's great, but I cannot see Bill when I watch him in the new ones. Like, I can only see John Boy from the Waltons in that role. It just works for me. All those actors are just perfect.
See, for me, the one area I will disagree with you in this, I think Bill Hader was fucking amazing as Richie. Like, his performance as Richie made me realize that he's not just a background comedic supporting role actor. He's a fucking actor. Like when he's crying at the quarry, like, oh my God, I think Bill Hader, easily my favorite part of it, chapter 2. Easily.
Bill Hader's great. I love Bill Hader, but I love Harry Anderson better as the character.
I get it, man. Like, I totally get it, because we have, and it's all, what I don't like is, the arguments that come of this. It's personal preference. Like, if we all agreed on everything, the world would be fucking boring. Yeah. I love the fact that we can watch these movies.
And Seth Green as well as a character. I love Seth Green as Richie too.
One scene I want to talk about real quick that really bums me out that didn't make it into the remakes. I think they could have did something really fun with this, because it's my favorite scene and probably one of the top 10 scariest scenes I've ever seen in my entire life. When Bill's in Georgie's room and he's flipping through the photo album. And Georgie's
Yes.
picture winks at him. And then he gets scared and he throws the photo album and it opens up and starts bleeding.
Yes. And the other one that always got me was when they were all looking through the photo album out in the woods, and then like it comes and runs up the little pole and puts his hands out, starts talking to him. I'm everything you ever were afraid of. Yeah, just that that seems pretty crazy too. There's so many. Like I could probably make a list of like 30 scenes that stand out to me in this movie.
Mm-hmm. And it's these ones that like I'm not gonna lie to you, when I first heard they were doing a remake of it, the first thing I thought of was that Georgie scene, because that scared, like I wouldn't look at photo albums even because like my parents and grandparents always had our pictures all lined down the hallway, you know, in the frames, and I couldn't even look at them, especially when I had dead relatives. So I was so scared that they were going to wink at me, and it just freaked me out, man. So
it's just a very simple, subtle thing like that can be so terrifying. It's like, it doesn't have to be so over the top and in your face. Like some of the moments in those newer ones where it could just be a simple moment like that. And it's just terrifying.
I completely agree with you, man. So I do want to tell everybody one more time. I know I said it at the top, I said it in the middle. So you got your first act, your second act, and your third act here. But in the third act, I'm going to remind you one more time. All the links are down here in the description. So make sure you're following Ken on social media. Make sure you subscribe to Mid-Level Media down here in the description. I know that you guys are going to love what he does, especially if you're a big fan of physical media. I mean, just look at the background. You know you want to learn what all that is. I mean, I know you do. So make sure that you're giving this guy a follow. Make sure you're subscribing to the channel, helping the channel grow and become even more successful than it already is, because that's what we're here for. Ken, don't go anywhere, man. I got a couple more questions for you. Everybody else, thank you for watching. Keep talking horror. Stay what you are. And we'll see you guys soon.